Hit the button, Buzz. Buzz, did you hit the button?
Yeah, I already hit the button.
Hit the button.
I mashed the button earlier today.
Mash that motherfucking button.
On that, I got to cut.
Yeah. Woo. Ooh. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.
Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by listeners like you. If you enjoy what we do on this podcast or on thirddegree.net or any of our social media, why not join us at patreon.com/thirddegree or just share what we do. Share our podcast with other FC Dallas fans, people you know, people that are curious about professional soccer and DFW. Send them our way, and that's the best way you can support what we do. Enjoy the podcast.
Well, hello there, DFW area soccer curious fan you. Welcome to Third Degree, the podcast. This is episode 313, and we have him again today, Dan Crooke. Howdy, Dan.
Hello. That was a very curious way to open things.
Would you like me to try something different next time?
No, it was glorious.
Okay, you like that. All right. And your hero, my hero, everybody's hero, editor, founder, thirddegree.net, and the original soccer influencer, Buzz Carrick. Come in, Buzz.
Peter, as an official Newcastle United fan, I would like to thank you and your club for saving my bacon on the Champions League.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah. I can't believe you guys lost to Everton, for Christ's sake.
I know. I was watching that game going, what are we doing?
Somebody explained to me how Newcastle and Aston Villa have everything to play for, and they both turn out two of the worst performances of their seasons. That's really crazy to me.
If I knew, pressure, I guess.
I guess you could kind of make an argument that maybe Everton's got, some sort of fight in them. United was just there for the taking. And it almost was like Aston Villa was trying not to, like they would rather not play in the Champions League next year. I know everybody's going to try to make hay about the call, but that's not the reason why Aston Villa is not in the Champions League. Sorry, kids. So
no, and I even was at the start of the Newcastle game. The commentary even said something about Everton had brought in some young guys for the game, and I was like, I guess they were fired up because they played really well. So Newcastle did not.
Congratulations, Buzz. It's been a good season for you. My Palace friends, my Spurs friends. If I had some Aberdeen friends, I could root for them too. All the Scott McTominay fans. Boy, it's been a good season for underdogs. Well, except for one. Luton Town.
I have no idea what you're on about.
Hey,
at least Nottingham Forest bottled it.
They did bottle it for sure. What's Watford up to? Because I know that's that's your nemesis.
Yeah, fortunately they've still never won a major trophy and probably never will.
Okay,
I'm looking forward to stomping Sunderland twice next year.
I hope they break the record.
I know.
Boy, talk about underdogs. That would apply to one football club, Dallas, who are, this episode comes on the heels of one of the worser weeks. Worse is a word, right? In club history, as Dallas gets knocked out of the U.S. Open Cup up at Red Bull and then go to their personal hellhole of Seattle and get tonked there 1-0, and it's not a good week, Buzz. And every time I watch this team play of late, I think my biggest issue with them is I just have no idea what this team is. Even with Nico, with Lucho and Nico, there was Lucho ball and Nico ball, and we didn't like either one of those things, but at least we knew what it was. And when I watch Quill's current team, I can't tell if they're a transition team, a possession team, a sit back and park the bus team. I honestly have zero clue, Buzzy.
Well, I'm not sure that they have a clue.
But that's a problem, right?
It is, it's definitely
that's a problem.
I mean, it's pretty clear that Quill is still searching for whatever magic he can sew together and get this thing going in the right direction. And from game to game, depending on the shape and depending on who's in there, whether they have those three guys covering the back or not, or when they actually find some width or not, there's sometimes that they look better and lose. And then there are times that they play this really boring conservative sit deep and they scrape out results. So it's like, he's got some problems on his hands trying to figure out how to play. And like anyone who wants to yell at us because it's like, no, this team's got this potential, that potential, dude, your record is what it is. You're one win ahead of where the last coach got fired. You're basically right where the previous coach for that got fired. And I know it's his first season and I know they'll probably give him some time, but we also hear this club talking about playoffs at a minimum. So, he's fighting for his job, probably, maybe, we don't know, but he's certainly fighting to get his team in the playoffs. All I can say is that the best thing I can say about this week is that it doesn't look like the team has quit. Like they rotated a bunch in Seattle and those guys all fought and played pretty hard. It doesn't look like they're turning on each other or anything like that. Like no one's yelling at each other. I mean, we get some Moose and Acosta, whatever, but those guys are like that all the time. There's not any extra finger pointing happening. So I feel like they're still emotionally in it together, pulling and fighting. And maybe that's a positive, but on the other side of the coin, like you're right. Every time we watch it, the team was completely different. I did another thing today and they were like, what's it going to look like? And I was, man, I have no idea what's going to look like. You don't know what you're going to get, with this team.
Yeah, you were talking about records and we were bringing this up, or you brought this up on your Discord. It was this time last year we were tracking this to be the worst team in club history, and yet Quill is only 3 points better, has a worse goal differential, and got knocked out of the Open Cup a round earlier.
Yeah.
Not good.
No, it's not good. I mean, it's not on track for that worst season ever, not at this point, but there have been some bad seasons like the season Luchi Gonzalez got fired, where it started out okay and then it fell off. So like there's a lot of soccer left. So it's far, far from determined what this season's going to look like.
And the West is cramped, and
the West is cramped. I mean, there's a couple wins different from the top part of the group. So there's no reason to like bail out on the season yet in those terms. And from the fact that we have seen, not lately, but we have seen positive road performances. We have seen moments where they look good. And then we see moments where they look absolutely horrific with like the 5-0 loss. And then you have a game like Seattle where they lost 1-0, but that actually looked like a pretty competent, shut it down kind of performance with a bunch of rotations. So it's like, you just don't know what you're going to get with this team. And I think you're right that they don't know what they have yet. They haven't figured it out yet, what they're going to be doing.
Dan, in your fancy English accent, would you like to try to describe the current state of FC Dallas?
I think the perfect way to sum it up is their away record versus the home record. In a league that
explain
home
that
advantage is so huge, they somehow have a great away record and absolute dog shit at home. Like, obviously the pieces are there; they're able to get results, but where you cannot afford to give up results, they are giving them up. It's beggars belief.
Well, Buzz, let's start off with the U.S. Open Cup game, which was up at Red Bull, and it appears Eric tried to go all out with a lineup, a
for sure,
significant lineup, and an interesting performance in many ways. I don't know what are your big takeaways from losing on PKs?
Well, it's obviously a bummer to lose, but they did play Quill's shape that he would like to play, the 4-2-3-1. It did open the game up a little bit, and it provided them, with better, I thought, chance creation than we've seen in quite a while. But this is the real dichotomy of this team. Like, it looks better, but they didn't get a result. They tied the game. That's decent. But remember, too, that New York didn't have their big guns in. They went with a little bit of a lesser team and then brought in their guys midway through the game. So, maybe one of Lucho's better games, his goal was absolutely fantastic. But then yet he blew the first PK. We talked when he scored that first goal, I was like, man, that's a great DP, big player, big moment goal, because it put them back up, I think it was, or tied at either one, whatever it was a big moment play. And then the next big moment, he bones it trying to Panenka, and puts his team in a hole, and you're starting off the PKs down a goal.
What is it with Dallas Argentinians trying Panenkas in critical PK situations?
Oh, normally they work. This time, no.
But the takeaways from that game is like New York, of course, is a pressing team. They don't press quite as much as they used to, but they still press a lot. Dallas was absolutely horrific at getting past midfield and that press. They Paz's feet were the worst I think I've seen them. They just really struggled to build out at all. And they were resorted to like a really one-dimensional game, except that they were in the game. And you ended up with this 2-2 game. You know, you compare that with the next one, and it's very, very different. So Quill talks a lot about how they deserve to win. I don't know, man. You know, I think they were in the game and they had a chance to win, but that's not the same as deserving to win. When you have guys making mental mistakes, like Ramiro's turning away from the shot and deflecting it into the goal, that's the game tying goal, you know, and just general bad decisions here and there and mistakes here and there. That doesn't make you deserve to win. That's why you didn't win, you know. And then on the other side of the coin, Bernie Kamungo looked the best he's looked since 2023. Paxton came in and immediately had 3 or 4 just absolutely stunning, you know, multiple line breaking passes that makes me so excited for when that guy's back in and playing consistently. So it was just a real uneven performance collectively. You know, you did think, I thought going late in that game, man, they got a chance to win this. And then they commit that stupid foul, you know, and give that free kick. And then Ramiro turns his back. And then later he gets the red card, you know, so he'll miss the next Open Cup game. He plays for Dallas, whatever that is, if ever. That might be one of the great jokes going forward is, oh, don't forget Ramiro has a red card.
He's our version of Clint Dempsey.
Yeah. I mean, no saying he's back next year, given the way things are going. So,
and the problem, Dan, is that this was really Quill's only real chance. Probably, I mean, maybe I'm being overly pessimistic about the league season, but
it's the best chance.
It was their best chance to win something this season, and to go out this early is kind of a stinker.
It's annoying because there's a sense of, it was unlucky. Yeah, sure it was. You lose a penalty shootout. You tie up a game because of a deflection. On face of it, that is unlucky. But you started against a B team. You shouldn't need luck. I thought they did well to identify that New York does not know what to do with the ball. So cede possession. That was great. They definitely switched to the back three a few minutes too early. Again, I understand the reason. You want to give them the ball. You want them to panic. You want them to overthink it. But Dallas doesn't defend well with a back three. I thought maybe going into extra time that you may have brought Pedrinho on for Lawless to kind of bring it back to a back four. They did very well second half of extra time to kind of get back on the front foot, but ultimately they went and played a weakened team, and they didn't look like they played a weakened team. They looked like the weakened team.
This game was an example of one of the real dual states of FC Dallas. They only had like 6 shots in this game. Dallas did. They got outshot like 15-6, I think it was. But of Dallas's shots, 4 of the 6 were on target and either forced to save or got a goal. So this is what we talk about all the time, like the quality of the chance, the quality of the opportunity. Like this is where XG comes into discussions. You compare that to the Seattle game where Dallas had 15 shots, but only 5 of them got on goal. So that's only 1 in 3 when you had, instead of having like 80% on target the previous game, right? So it's just not. It's a real Jekyll and Hyde team. When they are patient enough to get into the box and get good scoring opportunities, you get multiple goals, like the 2 goals in New York. When you go to Seattle and you're just blasting it from everywhere, and the best scoring chance was the Abubakar chance late in the game when he hit it off the post from like 40 yards out. Not 40, it's exaggeration. But those games just were total opposites of the nature of this club, and every game being completely different.
The best part of the Bubakar moment was the first touch to set himself up to hit it on this half volley, which I thought was, I think that was the shocker of the moment. Which
it was a really nice play from him, especially because we ripped him a couple of weeks ago when he didn't shoot. When he tried to cross to nobody. Well, he learned his lesson, didn't he? Pulled the trigger.
So Dallas, obviously, to your point, Buzz, goes to Seattle and at this point has done a lot of travel. trying to manage all this. This is the third or fourth game in 10 days, something like that. And
3 in a week.
A lot, and it's just going to continue this week, obviously, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But it's a day game. It was the game was going on while we were doing the radio show, so I didn't get to see it live or anything. We were kind of watching the score bug on the computer in the background, and I kept thinking, oh man, this starting lineup was such a rotation.
Heavy, yeah.
It was weird. It's almost like that is the lineup at the beginning of the season I imagine Quill would use in, I don't know, like an early round Open Cup game or, that kind of situation. Or maybe even this is a prime example of why you would want to use this lineup. But there are other parts to me think that, there's a lot of guys in there he's having to use as starters too.
Yeah, Marco Farfan is coming back, and gets a start, and we can have a discussion eventually probably about whether Farfan or Norris is the way to move going forward, or maybe they'll just share time, right? Irgad is playing. Ibiaga came back into center back, and Abubakar went out to right back to give Moore a game off. Ramiro's in as the sixth, and he went with the triple, this diamond four we call it, that has 3 holding mids, 3 sixes in there with Delgado and Shokafimana with Ramiro, which is why you get a game where Seattle had very limited opportunities and only scored because of the PK they got by Irgada's flapping chicken arm. Pedrinho was in for Acosta at the 10 because Acosta was on yellow card suspension. And Julio played, and Farrington rotated in for Musa. So it was like a 50% rotation. But again, because they played this deeper block 4-3 when they have the 3 guys across, they were able to really limit the other team. Pedrinho had a pretty good game, all things considered, trying to fill in. It's one of the first times that he started, and I thought, well, that actually looked pretty good. Like 6 shot creating actions, 4 key passes, 4 progressive passes. He was 2 for 2 on take. Like a solid Pedrinho game in the neighborhood of the way Lucho Costa plays, because ordinarily Pedrinho's been bad in starts for me. He's much better off the bench. But, Farrington, worked hard but didn't really do much. My biggest complaint about this game, I think, was that they had 0 open play crosses, 0 crosses into the box in action, live action. And I just don't really understand quite why, when you have strikers like Musa, who's a great box post up goal poacher, can get in there on those crosses. Farrington, who's super active, super dynamic, pulls guys out of shape, but also gets back in there and gets for balls. Like, why you're not getting any crosses in when you have those guys? And it may just be that when they're playing with a right back who's really a center back and Marco Farfan, a left back who's not an adventurous attacker, you have 3 sixes in there and no real wings under than Anderson Julio, who's not playing as a wing. There just wasn't anybody to provide any real width in Seattle. And so you end up with this tactic where there's no crosses, and it just seems really one-dimensional again. So Quill's got this horrible decision to make in a way of, do I go with a double pivot, open the game up and try and play when maybe I don't get those results as good, or do I go with this really stingy, really defensive thing and try with Acosta and Musa to win games when you get one chance and win the game? That's, tough call.
I feel like we had this conversation about Estevez last couple of years. Like, just that's why he's playing defensively, because this is the team that he's been given. And the only way he's ever going to grind out a result is to play this kind of ugly, boring thing.
And this is exactly the same discussion, because in the offseason, remember, Quill was like, we're going to play really attacking, really open. We're going to get forward fast.
Yeah.
And we talked a lot about the games are going to be high scoring because he's going to be really offensive. This offense is terrible. And the way this team competes at its best is when they bunker in with this, very defensive shape, until maybe you get a couple $1 million midfielders back down the next month or so. Maybe it'll change. But for now, he doesn't really have the team to open it up. And he doesn't really have the defense to play behind a team that wants to open it up.
Yeah, and I think what's concerning is if you just kind of take a moment and take stock of the season, especially trending over the last, April into May. When was the last time Dallas beat a team? Well, it was Miami, but that was a very rotated Miami game, Miami team. And then before that, the 3 other teams they've beaten this year are 2 teams behind them in the standings and the opening game against Houston. And that's it.
Yeah.
And then what's really concerning is our friend Armin in your Discord a little while ago, earlier today, we're recording this on Monday evening, posted some really alarming Armin stat nerd stuff about, the team's status in terms of XG and XG differential and all of that. And he's just, I mean, I won't get into it because of everybody tired head, and I can't explain it as well as Armin did. But the spoiler alert is Dallas is really bad, and it's bad in a very concerning way because there isn't really anything consistent to hold on to that says, okay, don't worry, everybody. This is a work in progress. Things will get better unless we want to go back and say all of this is going to hinge, because I think this is the craziest part of this story. I think a lot of what we're dealing with is the fact that Sebastian Lletget got hurt. And he's been like this missing talisman that they've somehow been really reliant on. And maybe him coming back and Paxton coming back to full health are the little tiny elements they need to unlock some sort of positive run this season.
Well, when we think back to the beginning of the season, we talked a lot about the team's inability to play through the middle of the field. And it went off a cliff when Lletget went out. It got even worse. With him, they were 3-2-2, which was 11 points. And without him, they were 1-4-2, which is 5 points. So, it's not, I don't think at the end of the day, just that they lost Lletget. If you'd had other guys, if Paxton wouldn't be healthy, we wouldn't have this conversation. It's the ability that he has, not necessarily like some innate, superstar value in Lletget himself. It's $2 million central midfielders that are missing that could, one you knew was going to be out for the first half of the year, but the other one you were hoping was going to be available. And it really has hurt them and made them one-dimensional when he went away. You can just think about the three guys. If you're playing these three guys across, if two of those guys are two-way players that can really pass and link, that team might look completely different in terms of its ability to play through there. Or if one of them is a really heavy six and you go with a double pivot and you have a guy with a lot more, you have two guys in there, because Ramiro is really static. This is the problem. Like when you're playing Ramiro, you need those other two guys to help him cover up for him and box him in. If it's not him, if it's Kayik and somebody else who's equally energetic and mobile, like maybe it's Paxton, maybe you can get away with the double pivot and all of a sudden you can bring back in a Bernie or bring back in a Lletget or bring back in a second winger of some kind and have Acosta be more free, and things might look really, really different. It's when you have a balanced league with a cap, missing two players of this caliber is going to tear the heart out of your midfield when it's the same position.
Wow. Okay. Well, Dallas, it was not a good run. Anything else about the? Hey, look, Jesus Ferreira didn't score. He had a couple of that wild, crazy scramble in the box. I still haven't figured out how Ferreira didn't score in that particular one.
Well, great Martin Paws double save.
I guess, yes. I still think that Jesus should have roofed it or something, but he kept hitting it right at Paws from 6 inches away. Very weird sequence. I don't know, man. Is there something else about that game you want to get into?
No, I don't think so. I think there's a funny concept. Like I've been talking a lot about today, about this team not having an identity. We started the podcast with, what are you going to get from this team? And then I was reading a quote from a really famous coach today. Brain fart, Brazil's coach now.
Ancelotti.
Yeah, thank you. Where he was talking about, I don't want my team to have an identity because I want us to not be able to get pegged down. Well, he coaches with a different level of talent than an MLS team does. Like when you're a bad MLS team, I still believe that you want to be really good at one thing, your one tactic, or not one tactic, one way that you want to play. Like this is how we're going to do it, and we're going to get really good at it, and we're going to make you adjust to it. You can be versatile in that way, but you want to become good at something, and right now I don't know that this team is good at anything in particular. It's okay at a lot of things and bad at some things. They need to find a way to get good at something to try and move forward.
Well, don't look now because the team has to make a run to Cincinnati to play against the second place Eastern Conference team and Lucho's last team that Lucho previously played for. It's a midweek game, 6:30. Buzz, I don't know how you want to preview this or anything like that.
Well, at this point, what Cincinnati is going to do, I don't think is going to make all that much of a difference because at this point, Dallas needs to be concerned with Dallas. They need to be concerned with what they're doing. And I think given the rotation that we saw it seems pretty clear that like what he did in New York is probably more likely going to trend towards what he'll want to do in Cincinnati. Except that, of course, we talk about this, the double pivot versus the triple, and, Ramiro will be in there more than likely, Kai's gonna be in there more than likely. So then you get to that point of, okay, is Paxton ready to go? Can I start Paxton as one of those three guys or a second guy in there? That really becomes a pivot point for everything you're going to do.
Do we have any idea what the time frame on Paxton is?
Well, they've been ramping up his minutes, and like ordinarily, I would say like a guy that you're going to give 45 minutes to, I might wait and just bring him in at halftime. But we've seen Quill start a guy that he knows he's going to have to lift him at halftime. So, I think it's a good chance that this might be the game where he finally is like, okay, Paxton, you're in. And then in that case, you really have to ask questions about who else you would do. We know he wants to play 4-2-3-1. And if Paxton can be in a double with maybe Kaik, I don't know. So far, Ramiro has been a lock starter and a deep into the game player for Coach Quill. So like at some point, will that start to change as he gets a Paxton and Leggett back? And I don't know the answer to that, when that's going to come. I mean, Musa should be back in. Acosta should be back in off of suspension. Anderson Julio is a lock starter too. So it really comes down to, do I want the extra wing, which opens up the play, allows me to have width, but then exposes my defense? Or do I want to go with this triple play that helps me lock it down? I think in Cincinnati, who's a pretty decent, in my head, offensive team, you probably want to go with that triple formation. And so then it comes down to, I think Abubakar should be in at center back, and then, okay, is it Paxton time or not? Because if it's not, then it's Ramiro, Kaik, and Show. If it is Paxton time, that'll be absolutely fascinating to see how that changes the game. You might start with Ramiro, Kaik, and Paxton and see how far you can get, see what Paxton can do, freeing you up. At some point, if he's looking good, you can leave him on and bring off somebody else.
And we mentioned him earlier, and I've seen that he's been throwing some rather thirsty topless shots of himself working out of late. Any word on when Mr. Leggett is due to come back?
I think it's not. It'll be after this trip. I think it'll be the earliest. Will be the home game. Is that against Philly? I think.
Yeah. Do we even know what his? I just dawned on me. I don't even know what his injury was.
I don't remember what they said.
Bottom half of human body injury.
Well, at first they were like, he's going to be out a week or two. But
yes, I know.
It turned into
3 months.
2 months. Yeah.
Is it? So, you sure it's not been 3 months?
Yeah, no, it's 2. He went out at the same time that Farfan went out. Okay. So we were expecting them to come back at the same time. So it's been a week or two longer. It just says upper leg. I think it's, it could be quad, it could be hammy, so hopefully that's a kind of muscle kind of injury like that. You can't necessarily rush it, so
I wonder if he banged it on one of his abs.
Yeah, possibly. I would expect not this game. I think like if he makes the bench in the next home game, I think might be an appropriate time to see him, so we just have to, it's going to be, we're in an era right now where Quill's fighting for results, and is he fighting for, does he feel like he needs to grind out points, or can he play to try and improve? Like, can I go into a game thinking I'm not really worried about the result? I'm trying to play good, by getting Paxton back in there and playing the double pivot that I want to do, The only Quill can answer those questions. I bet you, like, even if you were asking his assistant coaches, like today, they may not know what that answer is yet either. He's going to have to make that call in the next day or so.
Well, Dallas, as we mentioned, have Cincinnati on Wednesday, then Philly is in town on Thursday. That is a gauntlet of playing the two top Eastern Conference teams back-to-back who have 30 and 29 points, respectively. So, by the way, both those teams have decent road records. Philly, decent records. Cincinnati is undefeated at home. Yeah, undefeated at home, 5-0-1. And Philly actually is the one team in the league that, if I'm just scanning the record here, actually has a better away record than Dallas at 4-2-0. Dallas sits there at 3-2-3. So there you go. All right. Let's move on to other topics of the conversation. Dallas Trinity needed to win a game against Fort Lauderdale. And unfortunately, Dan Crooke, they were not able to do that, and they have put themselves in a right spot predicament.
Oh, yeah, they're having a rough go of it right now. That's what, three in a row they've lost?
Something like that, yeah.
Going into the last game, now they need to beat Carolina Ascent, the top team in the league. I think their one big saving grace right now is, I believe, Fort Lauderdale plays Spokane.
Yeah, they do.
The two teams in front of them play each other.
You know, and with any luck, they cannibalize each other, and Carolina Ascent mails it in. They drew with Brooklyn, so there's a good chance that they're resting up players for the playoffs. So.
I'm of the impression that this injury thing that has absolutely decimated Dallas is not unusual across this new league. Is that correct? Is my perception about that correct?
There's definitely been spells of injuries for all the teams, but Dallas just hasn't had they haven't had a settled defensive yet. They've had so many injuries just in the back line.
Yeah. I just wonder if there's a larger story about the fact that this is a new league with younger players or players that have not been asked to play in this kind of,
Oh, I'd put money on it. I mean, most of these players have either played Winter League in Scandinavia or they've just played college. There's very few players that have played like a full professional season, played NWSL, played WSL, or Spain, France, Mexico. Wherever.
Yeah, I mean, they're on 27, 28 games apiece. That's a load that those ladies are not used to playing.
Along with the training every day or whatever that regimen is and all of that and all the things you got to learn to be a pro. That's interesting. So that game against Carolina is on Saturday night at the Cotton Bowl. It's their last home game of the season. It may be their last game, period, if they don't get the result they need and get knocked out, because only the top 4 teams end up making the playoffs. And it does seem crazy that not that long ago we were actually like, are they going to end up being the regular season champion? They were going so well to start the spring, and then the wheels just came flying off. So,
and this is going to be the one weird occurrence where FC Dallas and Dallas Trinity clash with home games.
Oh,
that's right, that's right. Those games will be happening at the same time. All right.
Yeah, since Missimo's got hurt, they just really have struggled offensively. They're not being able to put the goals in. Even against some bad teams, they're not able to score anymore. It's like when they started the season, they got a couple of ties early on because they were having trouble punching it in. And then in the middle part of the year, Thornton scored enough goals and they lost. So she was like up for the Golden Boot. And like she hasn't scored in 3 or 4 weeks and she's still tied for the Golden Boot. So it's like it's not getting it done offensively. It's not just her. It's like it's the connectivity. It's the pieces through the middle that are just not connecting. I think a lot of it is just hitting a wall. They all remind me of rookies in MLS who past that 20 game that you're used to playing in college start to struggle. And I think that's why it's the cohesiveness of the front attack and the lack of any consistency in terms of personnel in the back is just causing problems for that team.
Well, it was a better week for other North Texas area teams, including our MLS Next Pro team, North Texas, who beat Tacoma 3-2 for their 4th straight win. Nice little win.
Yeah, very nice.
For the kids, the juniors.
Tacoma is a good team. I believe this was their first home loss, Tacoma's of the season. And Dallas, North Texas FC, has now won 4 straight. They've jumped all the way up to 2nd in the Western Conference. They're getting some guys back healthy, some center backs notably. Got a couple more of their signings have showed up. The new striker, Sangin, I think his name is, he scored a goal and then like 5 minutes later got his first red card. So that was fun. Straight red.
There's you a debut.
Yeah, welcome to North Texas. Yeah. He played a couple games before, but it's like he finally got his first goal. Sarver is their captain. He's tied for like 5th in the league in scoring, which is the 3rd highest number, like 7 goals or whatever it is. So he's definitely their best player. He's the player that most looks like if it was an emergency and you needed some help, like he might be a guy you could look at. But he's really the only one on that team right now, in my opinion, that's playing well enough to even consider that. Even Diego Garcia, who got his debut the other day, is just he's not dominating those games like he did last year. And so none of the defenders are playing at that level where you're like, oh, that guy could really help Sarver's the only one in my mind that is even in that conversation at all of like, if Bernie really continued to struggle and they trade Shu out and then, okay, we need a body on the cheap. Okay, bring up Sarver and let's give him a few games and see what happens. Maybe before we're going to go out and get another guy or something, Otherwise, there's nobody that team, I think, right now that could help them. It's nice to see Nico Montoya, who's the 17/18-year-old keeper from the academy that they signed. He's now started 2 straight and won both of them. So he's the next guy in the pipeline that's produced Clody and Carrera and Eyestone and whatever. So
good deal. Good for them. And don't look now, but Texoma is on a streak. They've won their second game, their 2 wins in a row as they beat Greenville up in Sherman, 1-0 over the weekend.
Yeah, Corey wrote this. This is the guy who covers them for us. He wrote this. I got to pull it up because it's fascinating. He wrote this stat little thing about their possession, and that this is something we're learning in modern football. Right at the beginning of the year, they tried to outpossess everybody. Well, we've all learned over the last 4, 5, 6 years that possession is not that big a deal. And so, like over the course of this season, they started off their first couple of games with 60% possession, and then it's dropping into the 50s and the 40s and the 30s. And so the last 3 or 4 games have all been in the 30s and 40% possession. And it's, they've, in the last 5, they have 2 wins and 2 draws and 1 loss since they've dropped down to like this 30% possession. When they stopped caring about the ball, it freed them up and they play much better. It's just a fascinating state of affairs in modern football in general, and specifically for Texoma that has occurred. So they're up to 10th, which is, they got like 15, 16 teams in that league. So that's 5 places off the bottom. So that's a great charge for them the last 4 or 5 games.
I saw a highlight on Twitter somewhere of this game where the Texoma keeper made a really nice save on a Greenville breakaway. But the thing that I noticed, because I'm a nerd like this, is that Texoma was choosing to wear an all black kit in the middle of a Texas day when it was 95 degrees. And I think that's a lot.
Yeah. Obviously, usually their home kit is mostly white, with those red white with red stripes. So it was weird to see them in the opposite color. Javier Garcia, by the way, is the goalkeeper's name who had that spectacular save. So maybe they just wanted to wear the black ones at home once and in front of everybody. But
they all look so hot.
Yeah,
yes, especially when you're
fabrics. It doesn't really matter too much.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. Okay, maybe I'm a wuss. I just think that's hot. Especially when that means your opponent gets to wear white kits on a day like that. That feels like you're letting them off the mat too easily. Well, congratulations.
FC Dallas letting teams wear red up Toyota.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Fuck tradition. Okay. All right. Well, congratulations to Texoma. It's great to see them get some wins. And then, what a nice turnout. For McKinney's home opener. 3,600 people showed up for the game against the Diablos from Denton. That's a really nice result, and hopefully they can keep that consistent as time goes on.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see. Hitchcock obviously knows what he's doing in terms of community involvement, ingratiation. 3,600 is that's a really impressive number for a USL 2, NPSL, whatever, I can't remember what they are. Team, but he has a couple of teams that are doing that. Like his Annapolis team averages like 4,000 or 5,000. The one out in Lubbock does pretty well, I believe, 2,000, 3,000 or 4,000 perhaps. So this is not totally unusual for the teams he puts together. And when you include Denton, of course, which has got a couple of fans too, probably, and it was the first ever home game for Chupacabras. So really nice turnout, really exciting. I think they lost, but it'll be fun to watch that team play, and hopefully we can get up there for a game this season.
And they're playing at one of the McKinney high school stadiums.
Yeah, Joe, whatever
Ronpo.
It is, Ronpo. Yeah, Ronpo. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Good stuff. Okay, so earlier this week there was a podcast posted.
Well, the article was first.
Oh, there was an article. That's right. There
Dallas
was
Morning News article.
Dallas Morning News article, and then a podcast posted. I don't know what the podcast is, and it's a young man interviewing both Sam Morton and Matt Valentine, the co-owners of Atletico Dallas. And I'll just cut to the chase. The big takeaway, because I kind of just skimmed through the podcast. Mm-hmm. But the thing that caught me off guard was we had all been under the impression that this lot that is off of 121 and Garland at Holford. Is that the
Yep.
intersection? At Holford,
Holford.
which is right adjacent to the Target on kind of the south side of 121, for anybody familiar with that area. Am I wrong in stating that we all thought that's where this 10,000 seat stadium was going?
No, that's
10,000.
correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we thought that's what was happening. But in this interview, we found out because of the article that, in fact, it's not a stadium, that it is their headquarters, training facility, and auxiliary fields that are going there.
We actually found out because of the city. The city did a presentation.
Yes,
and the guy from the city, Garland, actually said, "Oh yeah, the stadium used to be there, but now it's not."
Yeah.
Let me just get to my big takeaway, which was is that they were saying on this podcast, much to my surprise and a little bit horror, that they don't know where they're going to play when they debut in 2027. But what they do know is that it won't be their own soccer-specific stadium, which then leads me to the question of, where in the Dallas-Fort Worth area are you thinking about putting a new professional soccer team until you build your own joint?
Well, they don't have an answer to that yet. I talked to Sam Morton today, who's the co-founder and the head of the chief commercial officer up there. And I just wanted to sort of confirm like these timeline moments with him so that we didn't speak out of turn about exactly what happened. So you're correct. The original, when they announced the franchise from USL 1, that was like a day or two after USL announced that they were
USLC.
USLC. It was a day or two after USL announced they were going to have a Division 1. So at that announcement, this was before the brand. This is just the announcement of the franchise. The Garland mayor's there, all the city council are there. They had the sort of looks at the information about the stadium and the complex and all stuff. At that time, the Holford location included a 7,500 to 10K seat stadium at that time. But at this time, that's also just sort of a handshake agreement, like in principle. Nothing has cleared any official city council or have a contract, or nothing is signed. This is all just, we're all working together. This is the plan. So then, of course, right as that same time is happening, this now Division 1 possibility has come out.
Can we just, for the sake of consistency, call it USLP for Premier?
Sure.
Yeah, USL Premier.
Right.
Okay.
So they announced USL Premier. Well, that effectively makes everybody just pause, or perhaps pivot, in the sense that, like, okay, maybe that changes some landscape. Let's just hold on a second and see what happens. So since then,
and part of that is because of the rules that state to be a tier 1 league in the United States, your stadiums have to be 15,000 at a minimum.
Right. So Dallas Atletico has not officially announced which league they will be in when they launch. Since that, like, originally they said USLC, but immediately, oh crap, there's this other option. Part of the problem is that USL has not clarified anything more about this USL Premier. There's no information yet about how many teams, new TV deal, new sponsorship, how any of it's going to work. All they have done is floated this idea. So go ahead. Is there a question?
Yeah, the question I have is, no matter what happens with USL Premier, I'm of the impression that Garland is going to have to launch in the championship because they're due to launch in 27, and USL has said this Premier League won't start till 28.
Yeah, so that's the lay of the land, is that Dallas Atletico is still planning on starting in 2027. That means they will start play in USL Championship. It's very possible that between now and then, you'll get some sort of clarity from the USL, some sort of league will be announced. Maybe they'll ask for Dallas, with its huge number 3 media market in the United States, to be in it or not. None of that has happened. So they're having to move forward with the idea that they're going to be in USL Championship, USLC, except that they need the flexibility and the possibility of, what are we going to do if we're going to end up in the Premier, or even if we start in the Championship and win our way up. We now all of a sudden we need the flexibility, the possibility of having this 15K seat stadium. Well, that, basically, it's in a lot of ways, it's back to the drawing board. So that 15K stadium will not be at the Holford location, no matter what,
because that's too big for that particular location, or the city of Garland won't let them put it there.
Right. And
Okay.
there's infrastructure wise, there's a little stadium in that new complex that's a 2,000 seater with another room for maybe another 1,000 people on on a grassy knoll on the side. You can have like ticketed games in it, like maybe like a big high school or a Dallas Cup or
that'd be cool.
I don't know, reserve team. I don't know what it could be, but it's like a little mini venue, like kind of like what was in the original MoneyGram plans. Do you remember the original 5,000 seater at MoneyGram?
Yeah.
So it's kind of that vibe now, with some possible offices, training grounds for Dallas Atletico. Again, this is not past city council yet. This is not signed on the dotted line, but probably is going to be their training ground, their offices, maybe that kinds of things, right? So basically, my understanding from talking to them is Dallas is sort of in a pause mode about their 15K stadium that they're probably going to have to plan for. Maybe you don't need to start with 15K. Maybe now you're going to start with just 75 or 10, but have the possibility to go to 15. Again, that changes the whole thing. So the delay, what I've heard from behind the scenes also too is like this delay, this hesitation has sort of allowed other people to notice what is happening. And so other people have called in this, and by people, I mean other cities or other possibilities or other whatevers, so nothing is locked in place with their stadium yet in terms of like where they're eventually going to be. Yes, they're still going to start in 2027. So there's they're moving forward with Garland on this training setup and this little stadium. And they're sort of having to wait for the league in terms of their own big official venue they're going to be in. So that's where we are in terms of a stadium. Nothing is done on a stadium, basically. So you can guess, obviously, that in 2027 they're going to be playing somewhere in some stadium that already exists. Who hell knows what that'll be?
Right.
But it'll be from the outside. It'll be fascinating to watch. And Sam sort of has talked several times about the next couple of months. They've got a bunch of things that are lined up, and they're kind of waiting for the league to say, and they think that the league will say something coming up soon, hopefully, and then they can get some clarity, and then they can sort of move forward with a lot of their things. But, they have a lot of work to do politically with any kind of, no matter who it's going to be, to get this 15K stadium over the line. It's going to take some political work and development. They're not close on that. So it's my understanding from talking to them. So they're moving forward with the Garland partnership in terms of, academy fields, pro training field, offices. Like that's why the whole plan is going to be there for them.
Well, I just find it interesting because, the excitement level of them having their own place and doing all of that changes, I think, a lot if their debut season is at a high school stadium or maybe they play in the Cotton Bowl. Like that would seem like the weirdest. I don't know what you guys think about that, but the idea that this new Dallas team launches inside the Cotton Bowl would, I think, be really a weird ending to that story or beginning.
They've not told me anything about where they're looking in terms of play, but like just what we know about the Cotton Bowl, consider that they do have this emphasis on being this Dallas brand, Dallas Atletico, this Garland, this central East Side vibe that appeals. Cotton Bowl appeals to that. Also, the city is already paying a certain amount of money into the Cotton Bowl to maintain it and have it be quality enough for Dallas Trinity. So you could play there for very little additional money, relatively speaking, right? You don't have to go in there and upgrade the surface or try and bring in, like if you were to try and go to a high school field, you might have to spend a whole bunch of money on surface or facilities or security or whatever. And a lot of that could be economies of scale with Dallas Trinity. So I don't think it wouldn't be crazy to start in the Cotton Bowl. Where else? I don't even know of any other stadiums available that aren't going to just look like you're playing at, Dallas Carter High School or something. I don't.
Well, or what's the name of the one of the two Garland Stadium high school stadiums? Howard.
Sure.
Yeah.
Again, it's the same deal. It's like, are you going to go to Ford Field? No. It's like how many things are available?
There's not. That's the problem.
Right.
And that's why hearing these two guys talk about this and admit that they don't really have a place yet to play in 2027
they don't.
or a plan to build their own thing yet. I found really alarming because they've spent a lot of money so far trying to get this thing going. I'm assuming that all of their business, because they're both business guys, I'm assuming they're desperate to get this thing going sooner than later. And you know how people are around here, man. I mean, first impressions are a really, really big deal because there are a lot of options for your entertainment / sports dollar in the DFW area. And I think a lot of people are really excited about the premise of having this team here. But man, if they launch in a football stadium, I think it's going to have an effect on it.
Well, they might have been tough to get that, even if they had gotten the Garland thing. It might have been tough to get that ready for 2027 anyway. So you might have been looking at, I mean, I'm not a stadium builder, but, like we're already in the middle of 2025, so you would have had basically a year and a half to be ready for it to be ready. Even a small stadium, might be tough.
Wasn't that San Antonio Stadium one of those kind of like preformed or
Austin
pre-built
Bold
things?
Austin Bold Stadium. Is that a Rector set super fast?
Oh, I thought the San Antonio Stadium was like that too, and
No.
originally.
I don't think so.
Oh,
San Antonio Scorpions built that stadium a long time ago before the Spurs even bought them. No, it's Austin Bold is the one that has the erector set stadium you can put up and down in like 2 months.
Yeah, see, I was thinking, what if somebody could find a piece of land to throw a temporary stadium up that was just their thing, right? So they can build their own experience and
One of the words that Morton used to say talking to me was they need to have a flexibility built in as they go forward, because even if they start in the championship with 7,500, they need the ability to go up to 15 if they get promoted or whatever. So like, no matter what they do, they need to have some ways to adapt it. And he even mentioned, imagine Texoma. If Texoma gets promoted up from USL 1 to USL Championship, they're going to go from that high school stadium. I'm not based on
I'm glad you brought this up, because that is the example that I use with people talking about this idea of promotion relegation with the USL, which is, what if, and I realize the likelihood of this is really, really low, but what if Texoma somehow won their way into this new Premier League? Now you were having a team playing in your top division that literally plays in a city that is not even a rated radio market.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine that you will get some leeway in terms of stadium. Like if you get promoted up, obviously Texas would have to be radical, but
you're missing my point is if you're trying to grow a new top tier league to compete against the other top leagues in the world, that's going to create an advertising sponsor, all kinds of problems for you. It may be romantic and cool, but that's just not. Yeah. I think that's part of the crazy of the idea.
That's the big question. Like the idea of this promote relegation has been floated out there. And it's like, man, this country is different than others. It doesn't quite work the same here.
Yes, correct.
There's lots of really tough questions that have to be asked in moving forward with this thing. The least of which is, even if like there's the amount of stadiums in USL Championship that would meet the requirements for USL, this idea of a USL Premier is like 2 or 4. Yeah. It's less than a handful.
Right.
So like, forget about just Dallas Athletic. If they want to be in it, it's like they're going to need 8, 10, 16 teams to be able to do it. And then the minute you start having teams go up and down, it's like, you're going to ask, there's huge questions. So you may be right that like, it may be that for Dallas Atletico, the best answer is another piece of ground in Garland that's sitting there empty, throw the Austin Bold Stadium, which is still laying around somewhere. See if Donnie Nelson will sell it to you cheap, throw it together at 7,500 seats just so you can start playing. Maybe that's the answer, because then you could erect a set up to 15,000 or go somewhere else. Or then again, the Cotton Bowl's already available and has the nice grass field and it's super easy. I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying it's
used
easy.
To be a real nice grass field.
Yeah, it used to be real good. I'm just saying, like, so the answer to the macro question of no, there's not a stadium at Holford anymore, and they're the club is sort of pivoting and waiting for the league to define things, knowing that they're going to go almost 99% sure, we think, into the championship that first season. They're playing in 2027.
Yes.
So it's like,
See, this is fundamentally a great example of the problem with sports ownership in the United States, which is even in this idea of this promotion relegation structured USL thing, you are still saddled with ownership groups that are trying to cut deals with municipalities and cities to help get tax breaks and all the other things they need, so they don't have to spend the money themselves to pay for these things right out of their pocket, out of private funding to build them themselves. And that to me is like, look, you're a billionaire. Just build go get a piece of land and build the stadium.
These guys aren't billionaires.
Oh, I don't mean them specifically. Oh. I mean anybody that's trying to start a team. If you are a billionaire, go find a billionaire or whatever, or Dan and Clark for that matter. Just get the money out of the bank, guys. Break open the piggy bank and build the stadium. Quit leaning on Frisco to do all this for you or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
well, there is some Garland ISD involvement with the place thing at Horford, because there was some talk about this little stadium, this 2,000 seater, 3,000 seater could be used by soccer, ISD soccer, not ISD gridiron football, but ISD soccer.
Right.
So a lot of times, especially these complexes where like they're going to want to maximize revenue. So like, yes, their youth club will play there, but can the Dallas Cup play there? Can the ISD play there? Like some men's leagues play there? Like they'll be looking for tenants like everybody else does. I'm sure it'll be very reminiscent of MoneyGram in a lot of ways.
Man, that little 25, berm seated stadium you're talking about, right? Idea. That sounds like a great location for the next Barachos Azzurri over 50 tilt.
It would be peak.
Yes. Yeah. That's a game that's been played in this area for generations. Yeah. They'll make a documentary about this. The Barachos and Azzurris.
Probably after they make the Dallas Roma FC Miami with Romario playing in the Open Cup up there at UT Dallas upset game.
That's probably a little more important. Yeah.
That's a Dallas moment of Open Cup legend.
Rayados. That's an important one too. Yeah. The original Sting being the original national team, women's national team. So much great legacy of the soccer legacy in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for sure. Well, I guess they'll have to keep everybody posted on that stuff. And I gotta say, as much whining as I did about the logo and stuff, I have seen some gear that I like a lot. Like I saw a hoodie that I
bought
liked.
the hoodie.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah. The black one.
Okay.
Black one. Yeah. I'm a sucker for soccer gear. Yeah.
I know you are a sucker for soccer gear.
And any local soccer gear. I also bought the Texoma kit. I was glad about that.
The black one?
The white one.
Oh,
come on.
Okay.
They finally got it in fat guy size. I'm excited. So I got one.
A fat guy size.
And they did, because I asked them. I was like, you guys got to get some fat guy sizes, man. Come on. And they were like, okay, we'll get that.
All right. So speaking, let's do a little kit talk. Yay, kit talk. So, okay, in our little group discussion here, Buzz, you have posted a photo of the great Eddie Lewis, who at one time was part of the San Jose Clash. And I am fascinated to know, is this officially their throwback jersey they're throwing out?
Well, Armand posted that. He found that on Reddit. I shared it in our little group me also. But yeah, I mean, if Eddie Lewis is wearing it, why would it not be? I mean, I assume that's what that is.
That's actually wilder than the original Clash shirt.
I wouldn't have thought that would be possible, but it is.
What do you think, Danny?
It's kind of disgusting, but wonderful in that it's disgusting.
It has the awesome scorpion logo and the original Clash word mark. I mean, it's good.
It's got that awkward, like, petroleum, weird, greeny, bluey, tealy.
And there's some red in there and yellow. And I mean, it's got it all. You'll have to go, Buzz, you'll have to post it in your Twitter account or something, but it kind of goes back to the geometric design of the MLS 96 days, but it's a completely different geometric design.
It's just a tribute to that 96 jersey that was the Clashes was the most insane of that.
It's a cool modern interpretation.
Yeah. The Clash one was the most outrageous one of the because 3 or 4 teams had that same.
Tampa Bay
had a different one, didn't they?
Yeah, but you said this. You thought the Clash was the wildest of them, and I was thinking maybe Tampa Bay was.
It was the wildest of the ones that had that, of the 3 or 4 that had, like, Metro Stars had the same one as San Jose, and LA Galaxy did too. They had the one that had the little angles on it and stuff.
Yeah,
like Tampa's was different. Tampa's had the other one.
I mean, look, they were all crazy.
Yeah.
Except for DC United's, which was the only traditional shirt or kit in the entire lot of the 10. Everybody else's was wild ass.
Well, you remember the story with DC United was that Kevin Payne, like they said, here's your branding and here's your stuff. And he was like, no. He's flat out, nope, not doing that. Not doing that logo, not doing that uniform.
Have we ever seen what that original concept was? Has
No.
anybody ever seen the concept he killed?
No, but he's talked about how brutally bad it was.
We
And
need
like
Pablo Maro in the case.
He's like the only front office GM guy that knew enough to be like, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that brand. We're not doing that jersey. Here's what we're doing. And his was the only one that was great.
Yeah.
I mean, they had to redo the logo a couple of times because it was a little too,
okay,
whatever. But, at least like the classic uniform and name. And like, they didn't have a gimmicky name and a gimmicky kit and a gimmicky logo. They had a more,
So I've never talked to Dan about this before. So Dan, in 1996, how old were you?
I turned 10 that year.
Oh, you were just a wee lad. Were you aware at all of MLS when you were 10?
Not until the next year when I would sometimes play as the teams on FIFA 97.
And were you a kit nerd back then?
Not overly. I mean, it was.
But as an 11-year-old British lad, what was your reaction to MLS kits? Did you just laugh at them, or did you think they were cool?
Well, it was on FIFA 97, so I didn't really have the kits.
Yeah.
Like, I remember I think it was the Columbus Crew one was just black, and then it had like 2 yellow stripes on the front because they were like generic. But I mean, they used to have MLS highlights in like 99, 2000-ish that were like started at 1 a.m., which I'd watch sometimes. No, it was before that because they still had the 35-yard shootout.
See, this isn't the answer I was looking for. I was hoping you'd say, yeah, we'd all go to the pub after elementary school, have some beers, and laugh at how stupid MLS looked in these dumb, goofy kits.
I'm sorry to disappoint you.
That's what I was looking for.
But no, I think, Columbus had a cool kit. DC had a cool kit. Those Nike ones
Adidas
were
schemes
a bit
were good, yeah.
New England had that really funky. When Reebok had that weird, like, we're going to put the logo huge. They had the Chile or Paraguay had.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, Chile had a shirt like that at one time. Yeah,
and then obviously New England had the blue version of it.
Yeah,
the Nike ones were the batshit crazy ones.
Peter, look at the image I just posted. Right, Dallas and Tampa Bay and New York had the same pattern, and then LA and the Clash had the janky angles and the slices and
it was like a half panel.
It was like a half panel, yeah.
And
then DC's is classic, and then and 30 years later, the Wizards one is a classic, and the Cruise is not bad. So,
well, hell, the Burn shirt is still loved now. 30 years after the fact. I mean,
retro shirts are such a huge thing now.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I mean, I see little kids walking around like the France 98 shirt that they've got like a knockoff version. I was like, oh, okay,
did you
that's cool
headbutt him?
now.
You should have headbutted him.
Why?
Because it's a Don. Headbutting people.
Yeah, but not in 1998 you didn't. You still had hair then.
Okay, that's fair.
I was at Steve Davis's pickup game on a couple weekends ago, and there was a guy that I hadn't seen before. I hadn't been to this in a while, so this guy's probably been there for a while. And I walked up and introduced myself, and I said, "I'm Peter. What's your name?" And he said, I was like, "I'm sorry, what?" He says, "Zidane." And I was like, "I'm sorry, did you just say your first name is Zidane?"
Yeah.
He goes, "Yes," kind of sheepishly. I was like, "Zinedine Zidane?" He's like, "Yes, my name is Zidane." It's like, wow, that's awesome. That's really good.
Did you call him Zizou all game? Zizou!
No, I didn't do that to him.
No.
I just imagine if his name was Eck.
Yeah, that's right. I may have just passed out right there on the spot.
Peter, your next corgi needs to be named Eck. Ted and Eck. Two
well, it's got to be two syllables.
Just go, what the Eck?
Yeah.
That's right. It's got to be a 2 syllables. So maybe I just name my next corgi Ted Eck. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I never thought about that. I really should. Greatest player in the history of ever. Okay. Well,
Fair.
Anything else, boys, that we need to get into? We did a little kit talk. Oh, well, speaking of all of this and looking at this San Jose throwback, which is an indicator that that's what they're going to get later this summer. Dan Crooke, where in the world is our mock-up of the Burn throwback that we're getting? We're waiting.
Funny enough, that and the Nashville one that was posted confirmed a couple of things that I'd seen. That I
Will you just
100%
draw
sure
the
of.
damn thing and put it up on the website, for Christ's sake? Nobody cares how close you are or not. Just put it up there.
Well,
I care how close you are. Yeah. Don't listen to him.
What
Do what you want.
Peter, I've been doing this bit for a decade. Like, if I don't scare people at FC Dallas, it's not worth doing.
Okay, all right, fair. I know you like to make Brown happen.
The reunion kit, Dan, was the high water mark of Brown happening.
That was
Caused real panic.
When is this Burn throwback coming out? July
16th of July.
So we're less than 2 months away.
For the first time on June 19th.
Say that again.
They'll be worn for the first time on June 19th.
What game is that?
I think San Diego, maybe.
Wait a second. You mean they go on sale in July, but they're gonna show them off a month earlier?
No.
Wait, you said June 19th is when they're gonna wear them for the first time.
And they're going to be shown on July 16th and worn on July
confused.
19th, I think.
July 19th, Peter, not June 19th.
Okay. Did he not say June?
He did.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, June 19th is like 3 weeks from now. It's not.
Dan, you have to understand, I'm getting up there in age, so sometimes I'm not sure it's me that's misfiring. Yeah. So when it is somebody else, I want to make sure everybody knows it's not me that's
They're going to be shown for the first time on May 29th.
Oh,
and they'll
stop
go on
it.
sale on December 26th. They were just going to miss Christmas.
Peter, St. Louis is the question. July 19th is the St. Louis.
The St. Louis game. Okay.
Yeah, St. Louis City.
So when...
because San Jose is the away game on the...
So, Dan, can you give the curious an idea as to when they can anticipate seeing your mock-up of said Dallas Burn third jersey?
Christ, whenever I have time to do it.
Yeah, stuff's starting to leak. Damn, we might need to get a little ahead of it.
Yeah.
Boy, you're going to feel like such a boob, a bell end, if you
good reference.
If it gets leaked before you get a chance to post it.
You mean like what happened in preseason this year?
Yes, exactly, Mr. Crooke.
When I had it sitting there, and then
yes, Mr. Crookie.
Yeah.
Buzz and I count on you to help make us look good.
That's impossible to make. Well, me look good.
All right. Well, that's enough chitter chatter, I would suggest. Anything else, boys?
I don't think so. That's a lot.
Okay. All right, Dan, you need to exit this group chat and go to work, sir. Do I need to set a deadline? Will that do it for you?
Too many of those in a minute. I'm juggling too many projects.
Okay. All right. Because I'll set a damn deadline for you, bud.
And I will miss that deadline. Don't threaten me.
Okay. I won't threaten you. Hey, you guys going to come out to the Champions League final watching party next Saturday out at Spectrum?
No.
Enter PSG? We're hosting the show. We're doing it live.
That's the first time I've heard that.
We've been doing it for the last 3 years there.
I was there last year.
The wife and I are going to the Trinity game.
Well, the show's at 2, Buzz. The Trinity game's not till 7.
Well, I've just now been invited, so I'll ask my wife.
Where are you? Are you doing it at
Soccer Spectrum in Richardson, right by where
so
you live?
so 2 seconds from me. Okay.
All right, you guys don't have to go.
Let me consult the boss.
I was cheaply promoting my own event here on Buzz's podcast.
I noticed that.
What are you unhappy about this? Am I going to get a talking to afterwards or something?
No.
You're going to send me an invoice for advertising?
Yes, I'm going to dock your pay 100%.
And what time is the game, sorry?
2. The show is at 2. Kickoff is at 2. Soccer Spectrum over off of Campbell and 75 in Richardson, Texas. Awesome pizza. Really, seriously. The pizza's like freakishly good.
Sweet. Nice.
All right. Hope everybody comes out and joins us. It'll be a good time.
And that's the home for now of Atletico Dallas Youth.
That's true. Yes, the owners of Soccer Spectrum also own Renegades, which is merging with Dallas Atletico or Atletico Dallas.
Hey, by the way, since it will be after this podcast and before the next one, happy birthday, Bobby Hammond, on Thursday.
Bobby
OG,
Hammond!
Dallas Burn, friend of the podcast.
Buddy. Oh, better than just friend of the podcast.
Yeah.
Bobby Hammond's one of the best. He is the GM of the Carolina
he works for North Carolina, that club. I don't know that he's the GM of anything, but he's works for that.
He might as well be.
He might as well be. He's the dean, the other dean. Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by listeners like you. If you enjoy what we do on this podcast or on thirddegree.net or any of our social media, why not join us at patreon.com/thirddegree, or just share what we do. Share our podcast with other FC Dallas fans, people you know, people that are curious about professional soccer and DFW. Send them our way, and that's the best way you can support what we do.
All right, boys, there you go. I got nothing else. We will thank you, Dan. Appreciate you, dude.
Thank you.
Thank you, Buzzard.
Hey, thanks for being here and running us through the ringer.
You write the run sheet in a crayon, I read it. That's what I do. I'm good at that. And thank you, DFW Soccer Curious Fan You. We will speak to you next week on another episode of Third Degree, the podcast.
Yeah, I got nothing today.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.